Good morning, everyone. Yes, we've made it. It's been a week of joy, of happiness, of talking about education, and especially here at the ELNE headquarters, a week of work. But yes, we've made it. It's been really quite a ride for most of us. Today is now is the moment we have this webinar in order to summarize everything we've done, to talk about it, and maybe to discuss the future of education. My name is Daniel Wiśniewski. I'm the coordinator of the Educational Leadership Network Europe and the Secretary General of the European Federation of Education Employers. And it is my pleasure to open this webinar, which is supposed to be a kind of a summarizing webinar. We promised at the beginning of this week, on Monday, that the lead partners of the Educational Leadership Network Europe will meet again in order to, well, share their points of view, their views about how this week went, and what are their thoughts about the future of education and about the future of this network. And in order to do that, well, we have again a great number of speakers. We have with us, first of all, we have with us Monika Kepé-Holmberg, who is the head of unit on schools multilingualism from the Directorate General for Education, Youth, Sport and Culture from the European Commission. We have also with us, well, the representatives of the 5 lead partners. So with me, we have Agnes Roman or Susan Flocken, because Susan is currently on hold. Maybe she can join us just in the time of this webinar. We have Petra van Haren from ESHA, European School Heads Association. We have Ruta Krausauskiene from European Parents Association, and we have Gilda Isernia from ABESU, from the students. So first of all, I'm going to give the floor to Monika, head of unit from the European Commission, because Monika, first of all, what I wanted to say is thank you for joining us. I know you are out of office, you're officially on a leave, and yet you found the time to address us today. So thanks a lot for making this exception for this network. So I'm going to give you the floor. So if you can share your thoughts about what you think about this work that we've been doing so far.
Yes, thank you so much, Daniel. Thank you for the screen. Thank you for the floor. And very warm welcome also from my side. And as the topic is the future and future of education, I would like to invite you to close your eyes just for a second and think of something that happened over the last 20 years, something that you would have never expected to occur. And then when you start thinking, perhaps be it the pandemic, the smartphones, or something else, the truth is that the future likes to surprise us. And our world is in this constant state of change. And although there are multiple versions of the future, sometimes these are assumptions, some are hopes, others again are fears. But to prepare, we have to consider not only the changes that appear most probable, but also the ones that we are not expecting. And this is, of course, also true for education. And as you mentioned, the future also of education, I thought here to share with you also some thoughts, also in light of the discussions that happened during this very inspiring week about schooling for tomorrow. Because also here we have to look at not a single path into the future, but many. And when we look at future trends in education, when we also engage in foresight, we look at different scenarios that help us to identify the opportunities, but also the challenges. We also look at different trends. And for me, it was very interesting to witness and hear this week that the discussions were very similar to the work that we have also done with stakeholders who identified also different trends that are believed to have significant influence on the school education in the EU. And as I said, really what is striking that during this week's rich and diverse series of webinars, you explored exactly the very same topics and have come to very similar conclusions and recommendations. So if I just mention 6 of them, It will not surprise you that one of the most worrying trends already this kind of researchers, foresight researchers identified was the shortage of teachers, with the shortage of qualified teaching staff seen as really worrying both at national and subnational levels. And already before the pandemic, well-trained and experienced teachers were already unequally distributed. There were differences between urban and rural setting, and this has worsened. And what we also see that these shortages are caused by the aging population of teachers, but also by the worsening working conditions, which make it difficult also to attract new teachers. So these factors combined with the, I have to say, unsatisfactory salary and also the poor career progression opportunities is contributing to this potential unprecedented shortage of teachers also in the future. Another current trend, also based on the most recent PISA results, and I know that our Director General, Pia, mentioned this already on Monday, are the deteriorating basic skills. And of course, while we all agree about the importance of developing literacy, mathematical, science, technology, engineering competencies, the share of pupils not reaching basic achievement levels remains higher than desired, much higher actually than desired. Another current trend that we also see is the inequality in education, and this inequality among member states, but also EU regions, is very high. And this continues to be a challenge in school education. Evidence also suggests that the physical school closures during the pandemic have even widened the national inequalities, and we don't manage to tackle the intergenerational transmission of disadvantage. If we talk about inequality, if you allow me to say a word also about gender inequality, because here again we see that women outperform men in most EU level education statistics. Stereotypes continue to play a particularly important role in influencing educational and occupational choices. So yet again, a challenge. Then a current trend also show that blended learning is increasing in schools and the EU. And again, digitalization, digital technologies is something that you have also covered during the webinars. So here again, digital technologies have been increasingly integrated into classroom practices. We have seen that. We have seen the smart boards, game-based learning, online learning system, virtual worlds, online peer and self-assessment tools. So clearly the use of digital tools in education is growing, and the influence in blended learning will provide students with a more personalized learning experience, something we all have to prepare for. This will be a learning experience where students can control time, place, but also the pace of learning. And machine learning can also be applied to student data to develop AI teaching options, which could then create new options for delivery of teaching materials. AI, again, something we are talking a lot about, can also personalize learning and can also provide adaptive and individual feedback, something to think about. There was also an issue which was perhaps came a bit less during the week, but for us it's also quite important to think about is the link between formal education and work, because we also feel that this link between formal school education and work is increasingly broken. Formal education used to be a guarantee for a job, and today this is no longer the case. And here again, automation is increasingly changing the future job landscape, and education is not sufficiently changing to reflect this. Again, here young people and those with the low skills are those at highest risk. But also the new technological development we experience today will also affect the jobs of the highly skilled. And finally, when we look at certain topics that we expect also will influence also education in the EU, one of them is the increasing importance of sustainability education. And here again, many teachers, educators, academics, youth leaders across Europe are already actively teaching for sustainability. This is often driven by a sense of responsibility and duty to prepare learners to live, work, and thrive in a highly complex and rapidly changing society and economy. Current trends are also showing that there could be an increasing focus on civic and citizenship education. And here again, citizenship education is part of the national curricula in general education, basically in all European countries. And citizenship education has also a very clear link with sustainability. Here again, we have to navigate in a world where human activity is pushing planetary boundaries. So if we know the trends and what are the areas we have to focus about, let me still come back to mention two. Again, the topics that you have been covering really extensively during the past days, and that's digitalization and the teaching profession. So here again, just to repeat a bit what I said before, that digitalization is something that is creating both new opportunities and risks. And artificial intelligence, extended reality, the Internet of Things, and all other technological changes impact children. And this is also expected to raise new social and ethical challenges. So something that we really have to think about together. I'm thinking about transparency in the use of AI, also the interaction with deep fakes, the avatars, robots, and of course the ethics of digitalization. And of course, I leave the most important part at the end, and that is the role of teachers. And I should not forget about the school leaders. I understand this is something very much in the focus of this week's webinars. I mean, it was always very important, but I would say it has never been more important. And something that is coming through also from all the discussions is that it's so important to give them the support, the autonomy, and the trust that they deserve. And I think this is a message that we heard again and again during the week. Also recognizing that the role of teachers is changing. From educators and providers of knowledge, teachers are facilitators, supporters. Also the tasks that teachers used to perform in the past, they are now increasingly shared among different people. I think this is something we have been discussing a lot also about the team teaching, learning from each other also, and doing planning the classes together, but also learning together how to use the new technologies. So teaching is no longer and can no longer be an isolated position. As we have seen, challenges are complex. And of course, here we can early respond through European cooperation and with all stakeholders on board. This is why this week's series of webinars were so important. What I personally have as a takeaway and what I find really encouraging is that the presenters, the moderators, representing very different type of organizations, also coming from research, coming from practice, but still the messages were very similar and the messages was just as strong. So now that the first ELNE week is soon coming to its end, let me congratulate to all who have contributed, in particular, of course, the ELNE lead partners and their staff, to the inspirational speakers, moderators, and of course, I also wanted to thank all participants for the very active participation. The network is a Europe-wide network of researchers, practitioners, policymakers, and other stakeholders. So we really rely on you to help us to help develop and implement the policy at a different governance level. And also we really rely on you to support our policy work on teachers, on school leaders, all in the context of building together the European education area. And what I can say also from my side, that of course, also on behalf of my team, you can count on the European Commission's full support in this very important endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you, Monika, for these words of inspiration, for this summary of ongoing trends in the field of education. I think the recent PISA results have given us quite a lot of evidence that indeed a great number of challenges are still to be looking at, and that some of those trends that you have indeed outlined are quite negative, and we need to work even stronger together in order to really make it happen. On behalf of the entire ELNE week and ELNE network, I can also say that without the support from the European Commission, this entire work would not really come through. It would not really happen. So we are very thankful also to the Commission for this support, for this ongoing dialogue, and we looking forward to the further collaboration with you and with your team on this work. I think it is the greatest ambition of this network is to be a supporter of your policy work, is to be an evidence provider for the evidence-based policy in the field of education, and we hope to fill in this particular role as a network bringing together the practitioners of the formal education provision, and we're really looking forward into it. So moving on, having this in mind, I will now ask, because as I said on Monday, we're going to meet again on Friday to summarize this week and talk about the future of education. So I'm moving on, and I'm now asking to the floor Susan Flocken from European Trade Union Committee for Education, the representative of the teachers in this network and in this week. Susan, what are your first thoughts? First of all, about the week, and what do you think about the ongoing and future trends in the field of education? The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel, and good morning to everybody. I'm very happy to be connected here with all of you, and I see we have 40 participants on the whole, so that's a good number for this time. I think it's been a very busy year, a busy week, Daniel, with many different events, very interesting events, and it's been great that we've been addressing different education sectors that different organizations and stakeholders have had the opportunity to also showcase their work, and it's a good sign for the cooperation that we need in this field and working on the topics. Now, what I will just say is, in general, what I think what this week has shown is how important it is that we have a democratic way of taking decisions. Yeah, it's not a top-down and it's not a one-way decision making, but we need a democratic decision making. It's very important when we talk about school leadership that we talk about collaborative school leadership, having that involvement. That's how you create ownership, and that's how you also provide the environment to actually go forward and look at changes and reply to the needs of those working in the sector. And of course, as social partners, Daniel, you will agree with me that the social dialogue, collective bargaining, those are the instruments that we want to use, in particular, social partners, the trade unions and the employers in education, to address these important issues. So for us, I think was also important to look at how much indeed the different webinars that were organized were focusing indeed on the attractiveness of the teaching profession. So we just heard also from the Commission the presentation of what are the challenges that, of course, are there and are underlying. And from ETUCE as trade unions, we have very clear demands that we need to be looking at the working conditions. We need to make sure that working conditions in the education sector are decent and that they are attractive, and that goes very clearly along with attractive salaries as well, good conditions, because the education profession does need to be able to compete in one way or the other with other professions, with other sectors. So it's important that we are aware of that issue. We are aware that it's not only about salaries, but these are in many countries one of the underlying factors. So the attractiveness, that's surely something that we need to be looking at also in the future. And how to address the different angles of that, and to be working together as stakeholders. So when we look at the future of the ELNE network, what I would like to put forward is indeed that I think we need to foster more, promote more that collaboration that we have seen here in this joint, well, in the project itself, but also in this week on the webinars. And I also think that we need to be have that link more between policy, practice, and the research. And it's been very interesting also the Belgian presidency that has had this, or is taking that focus on how to link also research and the data collection more to what is actually also happening in practice, so that it's not seen as separate issues, but that they can draw that there's a mutual what you say feed-in from research and from practice. And then I think also what would be interesting for us is to be addressing broad topics, such as the topic of sustainability, which is important in the education sector. What kind of support do students need? What kind of supports do parents need? What kind of support is needed for teachers to ensure that we improve quality education? How can we make education more inclusive, in particular in these times of migration? We have the war. We are hosting refugees in education around Europe. How can we address this? I think these are issues that we need to take forward in the future of this ELNE network. And so I will go. So apart from, Daniel, what you said about putting in practice or working on that policy area from the Commission and supporting the Commission, I think we have a stronger role even there, because we are there to shape that. And I think we should take that role in shaping, not just following, but actually saying, how can this be done? What are our proposals for that change? And I think that's what we would really bring an added value. I would put it there. So I think this has been it's been a great success. I look forward to the continuation of the network. We will be a strong partner, and of course I'm aware that we also have a committed, Daniel, that we will be organizing events next year in particular in the network, so we stand ready for that. And thank you very much for now.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you very much for bringing to our attention the issues of social dialogue. Of course, I mean, for us as social partners, social dialogue is so important, and we would like to make sure that indeed certain themes that are kind of reserved for the collective bargaining schemes, they remain the collective bargaining schemes, like working conditions. But yet, at the same time, I think this week has also shown us that we are perfectly able and we are ready to collaborate with all stakeholders that are relevant to formal education, because we cannot really implement this change alone. And as you rightfully said, our role here is to be the voice, to be the shapers of the policy. And I also agree with you that I think that the future of this network lies in bringing the practice, the research and policy together. And this is indeed very relevant because even the current presidency, the Belgian presidency, is so much looking into this evidence-based policy making in the field of education, that we can fill in this gap and be this platform where the key stakeholders, the practitioners, can provide this evidence, this policy ideas to the Commission. And I think that this week has been a starting point for this work, and I'm really built up with the outcomes of this week, because we have proven that we can work together, and that's something that is very new. Now, Monika from the European Commission mentioned here the importance of school leaders, and we do have with us the representative of the school leaders from European School Heads Association, Petra van Haren, calling us, I believe, from the Netherlands. What is the role of school leaders in all this, and how can school leaders bring the future? You're so much important and so relevant there, because of course you're the ones that are the facilitators of this new vision. So what are your thoughts about the future of education, and what are your thoughts about this week and the future of the network? Petra, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Daniel, and welcome everybody who is here. I think it's very important to stress that school leadership has been a tremendously changing profession. And this Educational Leadership Week is very important. The ELNE network is very important, because the school head's voice is not really heard on many formal or informal stages. Well, I'm Dutch, and in the Netherlands, school heads have a particular place on all the tables, which is specifically of school heads. And I think in this dialogue, where we put collaborative leadership at the center, we actually touch on a very important change in education. In the beginning of this week, I stressed that we need flexible leadership models, and also Susan mentioned you have to work together in a school, and also the teacher has to be the teacher leader, but the school leader needs to be a school leader as well, and a leader is not the same thing as a manager. I will get back to that later on. Well, as Monika Kepé-Holmberg said, the school leader is very important, and she focused on the shortage of teachers, where the shortage of head teachers in percentages is many times higher as the teacher shortage. And this is an enormous problem because the head teachers need to facilitate the teachers in doing their work. So we deserve in the school very good leadership. Now, in the beginning of this week, I also stressed things like the professional learning communities, the community engagement, leadership development programs, cross-disciplinary teams, global collaborations. And I would like to share today an example of a Dutch movement that we started and how we actually made a huge change in what we did in collaboration with the corporate companies. Now, sometimes we joke a little bit about it because me and Mira van Vroonhoven, who was the director of our National Financial Authority, we called ourselves two inspired ladies with a wild idea, or sometimes we change this into wild ladies with an inspirational idea. But we actually created a network because we saw that the school head's position is very out of the spotlight and it should be put into the spotlight. It's very undervalued. We created with 13 top women a network, a story of cross-mentoring, where the top women, and you may really think about the top CEOs of Deloitte, ABN AMRO, PricewaterhouseCoopers, the bigger societies in the Netherlands. We decided that those CEOs, one CEO and one school head from primary education, would walk together for 3 months. We would have a kickoff together. Then there are some sessions that the leaders meet each other in their own working conditions. So the CEOs go to the school and the school head goes to the office of the CEOs and they walk along 1 or 2 days together. And then in the end, we have this network meeting together. And it was incredible what eyes from outside looking in on each other's organization mean. We saw an enormous curiosity. There was an open learning attitude. And actually, the CEOs from the bigger companies said, I never realized that the job of a school head is in a way exactly the same as mine. Only I have a staff of 200 or 300 people doing the job that a school head usually does alone. Now, of course, the scale of a school and a company is different. But for the first time in history, I would say, they realized that being the head of a school is not doing something nice with kids and drinking coffee with teachers. It actually is a very, very important leadership role where you have a budget of millions, where you are actually leading hundreds of kids, teams of tens of teachers, and that everything comes down to one person, especially in primary. Sometimes you don't even have a person to clean your school or to help you when your printer is breaking. So to see this was like an eye-opener. But for a school head, it was an eye-opener to go into the company where, well, in schools, of course, we have also a warm feeling for kids, but it also means that we have a kind of work that we are warm to each other and we are not always very businesslike. So a mean and lean leading was a very important learning point from school heads, and also how you can really have targeting things like PR and marketing, or how you can do your HRM management. So there was a lot of learning over and there. Now, this was a pilot of 13 couples, 26 persons. It was so successful that we decided to scale it up, and we targeted it up to 1,000 couples. Well, in the end, because of COVID, we didn't really get up to 1,000, but it was about 700 couples that actually worked together. And last week, we closed the first 3 years of this project. And it was amazing that especially the companies have facilitated this project. This was really something new in education. We usually are kind of afraid to take in the corporate companies, like they will take over the school and determine our curriculum or programs. That's not what happened. They actually facilitated the building of leadership, the learning together, and that was invaluable. You cannot express it in money. But by making it possible to meet, to have their offices open for us, to have our meetings, to actually help us creating little movies and PR, to help us on the legislation of a lot of things. This was wonderful to work together. And last but not least, in a way, the CEOs are part of what I call the in-crowd group of our government. They play tennis together, they have drinks together. And by walking around in the schools, I'm sure for the first time, they also talk differently about what education means to our country. Now, in funding this, we have been working together with NL 2025, which is a movement to make the Netherlands better together. And this is a network of corporate companies. And like we are the ELNE network, there are other networks. We actually connected these two networks in bringing in all this news and all this leadership together. So I'm just having shared this as an example of how you can actually shape the future of education in a very innovative way, still have your autonomy as education, but also be more open and be together responsible for education. And the corporate companies need to be responsible with us, because education is funding the citizen of the future, and it's more than doing something nice with kids. So I welcome you in the world where I think everything is possible when you are able to take your leadership, supported, of course, by research, which gives us the data to do the right things. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Petra. I can tell you an anecdote, because speaking of bringing communities together and bringing corporations and companies to our world, I can tell you that working with employers, I have the pleasure of working with employers of all kinds of sectors, and they always tell me that they primarily consider us really as skills providers. And I try to always shift it to them and say, look, we're not just providing you skills, we are also providing you your clients. And then they sort of try to look at us very differently. But I could say that I very much agree with this entire community learning, and it's one of the trends which I think the education is indeed moving forward. The community learning, the bringing the community to making the school the center of the community, and making the school a learning institution, these are the trends that we certainly would like to see in Europe, and we're going to move this forward also within the framework of this network. Thank you very much, Petra, for these words of inspiration. I certainly agree with you that indeed the ELNE Week and ELNE as a network is actually a good support for the partners and for moving this policy forward. Now I'm going to, well, there's no education without the primary educators of our children, meaning the parents, and we do have the European Parents Association with us. We have with us Ruta, who will indeed summarize this week and also tell us about the trends that the parents see in the education. Ruta, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's really a great honor for me to be in such an event, and summarizing all this week, I would like to share with you some of my thoughts. My topic is to talk with you about the co-creating inclusive educational environments, but we all understand that the school doesn't work without the support of school leaders, teachers, stakeholders, students themselves, and parents as well. The educational environment of schools gain increasing importance, deliberately created by all school communities. Students spend a significant amount of time at school. It's not just a place of learning, but also where school celebrations and other events take place, and where we parents are coming. Adapting for the educational process, the universal design of both interior and exterior educational spaces becomes one of the factors in education contributing to the empowering of educational quality and in chasing the school's microclimate. The creation and use of educational spaces are one of the challenges of modern education systems, becoming a necessity. Often, the main focus is on the physical learning environment, the classroom, the school building, learning resources, and less on the social interaction, what we are talking about, and on relationship types of the learner that influence learning. The Educational Spaces 21, reviewed and prepared by OECD in 2016, describes educational spaces in more detail. In addition to infrastructure, digital resources used for education, internet connectivity, the environment used for lessons outside the school building and in nature, and now virtual reality as the part of educational spaces. Therefore, it is crucial to creatively integrate the evolving internal and outdoor environment of schools, considering suggestions from teachers, school leaders, and other community members, and most importantly, understanding the needs of students in our schools. We must not forget that well-designed educational spaces in schools inherently have an educational impact on students and the school community. It is essential to understand that all of this complements the daily work of the teacher, shapes students' attitudes, and contributes to cultural education. It is multifaceted, integral part of school life, offering opportunities for student development and growth. I would like to highlight the main directions for the development of educational spaces in school: community engagement, analysis of local situations, opportunities for using environmental objects, planning and forecasting together with the community, creating educational spaces in schools, adapting didactics and methods, planning the efficient use of educational spaces, methods, equipment, and of course, sharing the information. So this is what we are doing all this week. All of this contributes to the formation of young people's personalities. Spaces dedicated to the outdoor and indoor processes of children and youth have unique impact, helping to create functional behavioral habits, a culture of communication and tolerance, develop aesthetic taste, and establish the necessary standard of living for personal development. Pedagogical methods, programs, and the functions dictated by educational spaces must correspond to the desired goals. Furthermore, the environment is a part of our culture, reflecting community activities, values, level of development, revealing interpersonal relationships, and level of education of the community. That is why the active involvement of parents helping the entire school to progress is so important. Today, the concept of schools has been enriched with new accents. Schools as learning communities, teachers as learners, modern learning methods, diversity in learning organization and environment, the merging of learning and life in school, and modern culture of leadership. We are creating a dynamic learning environment. Therefore, it's crucial for everyone to share best practices, to familiarize themselves with the discover of latest trends, to seek answers, to respond to future needs. I believe that co-creative, inclusive educational environments is paramount for the holistic development of well-being of all children. We all know that inclusive education goes beyond mere access to classrooms. It encompasses fostering of sense of belonging, acceptance, and support for every child, regardless to their background, abilities, or differences. First and foremost, parents play a crucial role in advocating for and supporting inclusive practices with schools. We understand that every child is unique with their own strengths, challenges, and learning styles. By actively engaging in dialogues, sharing insights, and participating in decision-making process, parents can contribute valuable perspectives and enrich the educational experience for all students. Furthermore, as advocates for our children, we collaborate with schools to implement inclusive policies, practices, and resources to support the diverse needs for students. This may include advocating for inclusive curricula, promoting access to assistive technologies and support services, and ensuring that school facilities are accessible to all. By working together with empathy, understanding, and shared commitment to equity and inclusion, we can create learning environments where every child feels valued, supported, and empowered to thrive. Taking this opportunity on behalf of European Parents Association, I would like to thank you for the possibility to share my thoughts in this excellent event and to encourage everyone to contribute to the development of our schools. I would also like to say that today my country celebrates the Day of Restoration of the State of Lithuania. So therefore, I sincerely congratulate the education community of my country, teachers, students, and their parents on this wonderful celebration, and invite everyone to actively participate in creating the school of future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ruta. Well, congratulations to Lithuania and to all the Lithuanian colleagues about your today's holiday. First of all, thank you very much for joining us at the day of your holiday. It also says quite a lot about that. So we are very happy to have you with us. I've been myself being a parent. I'm always very warm and very sympathetic to the parents associations. It's key that the schools are also being seen as supporters of the parents, because the parents are those that really care about the children the most, and they are of course the primary educators of every child, and schools need to be co-designed with the parents. So we are so happy to have you here with us. Now I'm going to ask to the floor Gilda Isernie from Obesu. Well, the students are there to shake us up a little bit, to tell us what is it that they want, what is it that they expect, what kind of skills you want to be taught, and in what way. How can we really engage the students better? How can we provide a learning method or a learning framework for the young people so they can also enjoy the school more and they can benefit from it more? Gilda, what are the trends in education? The floor is yours.
Thank you, Daniel. Hi, good morning, everyone from Brussels. Lots of questions. I don't know if I'll manage to cover everything, but in any case, it's very nice to see you all here today and to be together again to take stock of the learnings we've had through the week, but also prepare for this last day of webinar week. Well, to answer your questions, Daniel, as representatives of the student body, we are the largest stakeholder group in education systems across the EU and in the world. And for us at Obesu, spending this week with you and debating together the future of education was really a wonderful experience. And then hearing my colleagues speak from other organizations, the Big Five, as we call them, it's really obvious to me. I mean, I can see how all of us stakeholders in education really stand in a place right now at the intersection, really, of vision of what we want to achieve and action. So what we have left to do. And as the voice of students, of course, we have to advocate for their collective interests. And as you know, this is not always easy. Students are not always involved in decision-making in education. But we also know that very few rights were given and most rights were fought for. And for us at Obesu, implementing collaborative leadership in education is a cornerstone of a common journey towards fostering an environment where every voice is heard and valued, including that of the student body. And so for us, collaborative leadership is really a move away from some more traditional hierarchical structure. It's an invitation to all stakeholders to engage actively in decision-making processes. And as a student union, for us, it's really transformative for educational landscape to be able to collaborate together, to empower students, as Jutta said before, to cultivate truly inclusive learning communities. I think one really important item of reflection for us during this week, all the webinars that we've seen, the ones that are after this session today, the roadmap ahead looks a tiny bit more clear. The road looks a little bit less bumpy, although it's still long. And I think there is a lot of answers that we don't have yet. But to the question, what are the key elements of, strategies, any strategies for collaborative leadership in education? I think the first fundamental element really is promoting open communication. And this is what we've been doing also this week, discussing, having teachers from one country, asking teachers from another country or another level of education, how do you deal with students using generative AI to do their homework? So, and that was beautiful to see how different the answers were and how beneficial was that exchange. And establishing transparent communication channels between students, administrator, different types of staff and teachers and other stakeholders is fundamental. Fostering open dialogue, we can really facilitate the exchange of ideas, concerns, and feedback and create this culture really of trust and collaboration. And as I mentioned before, this is especially true when we speak of digital revolution and how it is going to affect teaching and learning in the future. Teachers and students have very different experiences, levels of proficiency in using digital tools. And this really affects their views and attitudes towards them. And dialogue really emerges as a key enabler of a fair and successful digital transformation in the classrooms across the EU. Because we have seen that there are many benefits, for example, to generative AI. There are also many risks, machine learning, other digital tools. All of these needs to be figured out together through dialogue. And as I said, sometimes the answers are not going to be there, but the exchange is the benefit in this case. And this brings me to the second element of any successful strategy for collaborative leadership, which is really the power of partnerships. Collaboration knows no boundaries. And so seeing educational institutions, university, community services, stakeholder groups, and all sorts of educational institution partners, being partners and establishing partnership is a way of growing our collective expertise. As Petra was saying, joining forces, researchers, people who sort of show us the way, and then those who are in charge of implementing it. Because we have a common goal, not only of enhancing the quality of education, but also expanding opportunities for teachers, for students, for school heads, for parents, for their engagement and for their success. And so in this sense also, providing leadership opportunities, and in the case of students, especially spaces for experiential learning, is a strong element of collaborative leadership. Good leadership really requires specific skills and competences on all sides. And it is our view that some stakeholders in education need to be empowered, and others really need to learn how to listen and to step up to empower others. And all of us, we all need to learn by doing how to work together. And there are many tools that can support this endeavor, as we have seen this week: mentorship programs, non-formal education trainings, upskilling, reskilling courses, pilots, policy experimentations at various levels, all of these supported by strong research. But there are not only new things that we can implement, new things that we can experiment. There are also things that are already in place, structures that are already in place, as Susan was mentioning earlier. There are processes that already exist, and those need to be cultivated, valued, revitalized to reach their full potential. And this is, when I'm saying this, I'm also and especially thinking about student representation. The importance of having meaningful, strong, active student bodies is paramount to achieving what we need, what we want to see, and the quality education for all that we want for the European education area. And experimentation brings me to yet another element. Obviously, as a projects and policy person in OBESU, I cannot not mention the importance of measuring impact and evaluating, continuously reflecting on the impact of our collaboration initiatives so that we can sort of iterate the road ahead based on the lessons learned. Like many processes that are not deliberative but are consultative, it's important to keep these processes of evaluation transparent and really make sure that the input that is shared by all stakeholders is taken into account. We have seen, especially when we talk about democracy, democratic engagement of the young people, that participation without real impact, without consequences, can just be as discouraging as exclusion. And so in this sense, for us, really, the quality of participation experiences matter. And this brings me to the importance of empowering student voices, which for us at OBESU is paramount. Students are not just passive recipients of education, they are active agents of change. For us, empowering student voices really involves creating or revitalizing platforms for students to express their perspective and contribute, really truly contribute to decision-making processes by co-creating solutions to address the challenges that all the stakeholders in education, all of those who enter schools every day, face in their everyday life. But what we have seen as our colleague from the Commission was mentioning before, today's world is not just about all students. It's about all the different kind of students that are out there. At OBESU, we always say, nothing about us without us. This is not a slogan that belongs to us originally. This is a slogan that was born in the fight for the right of disabled people with disabilities. But it's a way to really, I think for us, it really applies across the spectrum for all of those whose identities are marginalized, whose communities are underserved by society, and then so by extension, sometimes by our education systems. And the COVID has really sort of shown us how much do we have to do still in order to achieve fair, accessible, equitable schools and education. So for us, diversity and inclusion is a sine qua non condition for effective collaborative leadership. And fostering inclusive practices means to create environments, learning environments where all students feel respected, valued, and empowered to contribute to their conversation, to the collective conversation with their unique perspectives. And you must forgive me, Daniel, but I take here again the opportunity to invite you to the OBESU webinar that is happening later today from 3 to 4 p.m. on how Italian students are working to achieve just this. And to conclude, implementing collaborative leadership in education, we believe it's not just a goal, it's really a journey, and one that requires a commitment by all of us, perseverance, adaptability, consistency. We believe as student unions that collaborative leadership is a catalyst for positive change in education. And I believe that this is exactly what we're doing here in the educational European Leadership Network. So together, let us seize this opportunity to create inclusive and empowering, transformative learning environments that can really nurture the potential of every student. Thank you.
Thank you, Gilda. I'm always happy to listen to you because indeed your ideas at times might be provocative. I mean your ideas as the students, but at the same time you're key to this. I mean ultimately the education is there for you, and this is how it should be always seen. So Gilda, thanks a lot for that. I am told, according to the schedule, that I have now 6 minutes, not only to say what I think as EFI, as European Federation of Education Employers, but also to close this and summarize everything we've been doing over this week. So I will start with the thank yous, because I think there is a lot of people here in the back that have not been even mentioned over this week and has never left this room. So I wanted to thank, most importantly, Silvia Pessini from ELNE, Valentino Lacasa, Axel Day. I wanted to thank the EFI staff who has been tirelessly working over this week in order to make it all happen. And you might have seen them either on the chat, on coordination, on technical support. They've been there. They've been there for you. So so they are now waving to you, just to say that we've been doing this for a week. In the preparatory room, we had a discussion about this, that indeed for the last week, most of our staff have been sleeping in this office. But fortunately, we have delivered, so we are very happy with it. And I wanted to thank them, because ultimately this has been really a great work. Now, a few words about the trends in education. One thing which I believe we have not really covered much within this week is the access to the teaching profession, and the fact that well, it is very formalized nowadays. Of course, we need to make sure that we are keeping the quality of the teaching profession, but at the same time, at least on the employer side, we don't believe we can solve the teacher shortage crisis without looking into alternative pathways to the teaching profession and without opening up the profession in itself. And that's something that is very important for us. We're looking into this, into a number of projects, and I believe that within this week we have not had a really much chance to discuss this, but maybe next year we can do it better. We certainly agree with some point that have been mentioned here already about the community learning. So we believe that the school can be a community center for not only for the students, not only for the teachers, but also for the parents, for all the stakeholders. And we are looking into the concept of the learning school. So how could we really making sure that schools are learning institutions that grow in their knowledge and involve teachers also as researchers, especially when it comes to their interaction with students, because we really need this evidence. We really need to check how this, in order to increase the student satisfaction and the parent satisfaction, we need to also start studying the interaction between the teachers and the students. So it's all about community learning. Autonomy of school leaders and teachers. I think that this is a very important point here as well. It has been mentioned, I think, in a number of occasions, but it's something that we certainly need to work on even more. Of course, having in mind that the education sector is so diverse and it's really organized in different ways in different countries, yet autonomous school leaders and teachers with the amount of leadership necessary to lead the learning process are key to improve the education sector. The teaching position and the teacher profession in general, what I wanted also to mention is the fact that we really need to kind of reconsider and rethink the teaching profession in itself. We certainly need to look into the way of progression that the teaching profession needs to be reconsidered. How could we really make sure that the teaching profession is not a flat profession, but it's a profession where you can gradually grow into different, let's say focuses. It could be a focus on research, on leadership, on being a senior teacher. We need to look into the co-teaching aspect. So it's also about rethinking the entire teaching profession and the status of teachers. I think that is one topic that we haven't really touched upon enough. We have really skipped this idea and this challenge, I think, over the years, and we have a challenge with that now in many countries, not in all of them, but in many countries we have a challenge with the status of teachers. This requires a lot of work for this sake. Now, that's what I wanted to say about the trends, and finally what I wanted to say about the ELNE and the ELNE week. I think we have one thing that this week and this network has achieved was to bring in a meaningful way the key stakeholders together. One thing that we really achieved was the diversity of our webinars, of the work. We've managed to create a space where different stakeholders in education that are key for formal education provision have a showcasing place where they can showcase and show to everyone what they have been doing, what they have been working on. We've managed to kind of build a platform where we can talk to each other and bring down the silos in which we normally work. And of course, there's a lot of things that we can improve, but I think this was the first attempt to do this. And from this side, we are very happy that we've really managed to achieve that, to bring you all here, to talk to each other, and to indeed present what is that we are really working, what are our different perspectives in order to foster this policy, the policy in the field of education, and being the evidence-based policy driver, let's call it this way. We are here indeed to support the Commission. We are here to shape the education at the same time. But what we really want to be is to be a network that has a supportive role in shaping education, and that has a supportive role in providing evidence for the policy in the field of education. So I think this is something that we have just started. I think it wasn't perfect, but it was a first attempt to do this, and I'm very grateful for all of you that you have been part of it. I wanted to thank the Big Five, the parents, the students, the teachers, the school heads, and I wanted to thank all the partners that have contributed to this week by either providing examples, by providing the webinars themselves. This was a joint effort, and I think this has been a successful effort, although it was our first time. So I'm looking forward to the next year. We will do it much better, I promise you. But before that, we certainly need to talk to each other and see how we can, even enhance this collaboration even further. And until that, I invite you to the next webinar. We still have 3 different webinars in front of us. Just in 15 minutes, I will have an interview with Beatrice Pont from UNESCO on the future of education. So we talked a little bit about the common trends, and now in 15 minutes, I will have a chance to ask our colleague from UNESCO about what are her views about the trends that she sees. And that's, I think, is very, very interesting. Later on, indeed, Gilda mentioned here that there is a webinar organized by the students, and that so later on will be an end of this week. Again, I wanted to thank you for all your contributions, for all your work. This has been a wonderful effort that we certainly within the ELNE team, we're very proud of. So thank you for helping us to build this all together. And I see you in 15 minutes. In case you would like to join and ask certain questions to Beatrice Pont from UNESCO about the future of education, we meet in 15 minutes. The link should be in the chat. So until then, have some break. And thank you very much for all your contributions.